city on the banks of the Nile, a judge once ruled against the truth, and everyone in the courtroom saw it happen. The poor man walked out with nothing. The merchant walked out smiling, and the judge sat alone in the empty court as the sun went down and did not explain himself to anyone. The people called him corrupt. His own clerks doubted him. For 3 years, nobody understood what he had done or why. This is the story of the wise judge. The city was old in the way that only cities on rivers can be old, built layer upon layer over centuries, each generation adding its stone to what the last had left behind. The Nile moved past it without hurry, the same as it always had, indifferent to the arguments of men. At the center of the city's life sat the Hall of Justice, a long, cool room of sandstone and shadow where disputes were brought and verdicts handed down. It was presided over by a judge named Amr, and Amr had a reputation that stretched the length of the river. People said he could not be bought. They said he had turned away gifts from governors and generals alike. They said that in 30 years on the bench, no man had ever left his court feeling that the truth had been ignored. He had learned to hear not just what people said, but what they were afraid to say. And he had learned to be patient in a way that most men never manage, because he understood that truth, like the Nile, moves at its own pace and cannot be hurried. His name was Khalid, and he was the kind of rich that makes other men nervous. He had built his fortune in trade, grain, cloth, spice, and he had built it by being harder than the men he dealt with and faster than the men who competed with him. When a dispute arose between Khalid and a poor water carrier named Yusuf, nobody in the city expected much. Yusuf claimed that Khalid owed him payment for the use of a well that sat on land his family had owned for 3 generations. Khalid claimed the land and the well were his, backed by documents his lawyers had produced. Yusuf had no documents, only his word and the memory of his neighbors. The night before the trial, Khalid visited a man who visited Amr's clerk. Gold changed hands. But the morning of the trial, there was a stillness in the Hall of Justice that the regular observers recognized the particular quiet of a room in which the conclusion has already been decided. Yusuf stood before the court with nothing but his testimony. He spoke clearly and without embellishment. The well had been in his family since his grandfather's time. The neighbors knew it. The water cellar on the corner knew it. The children who played near it every morning knew it. He asked for nothing beyond what was his. Khalid's lawyer presented the documents. They were thorough, formal, sealed with the appropriate marks. Amr listened to both sides in his usual silence. He asked a few questions, quiet, precise questions that seemed almost beside the point. Then he sat for a long moment, looking at the documents, looking at Yusuf, looking at something only he could see. And then he ruled in favor of Khalid. The courtroom stirred. Yusuf's shoulders fell. Khalid's lawyer permitted himself a small smile. The clerk looked at the floor. Amr said nothing further. He rose, gathered his robe, and walked out of the hall into the afternoon heat, leaving behind a room full of people who thought they had just watched a great man become a small one. The story spread quickly, as stories do in old cities. Amr had been bought. Amr had finally fallen. The man who could not be corrupted had been corrupted, and the proof was a poor water carrier walking home empty-handed, while a rich merchant added another well to his holdings. Amr said nothing. He continued to hear cases. He gave no explanation. He sought no sympathy. His clerks watched him and whispered. His friends fell quiet when he entered rooms. One by one, people adjusted their understanding of him downward, from great man to ordinary man, from incorruptible to merely human. Only one person did not adjust their opinion. An old woman who sold bread near the hall told anyone who would listen. I have watched that man's face for 20 years. That is not the face of a man who has given up." Nobody paid her much attention. 3 years passed. Khalid's fortune, which had seemed immovable, began to shift. A trade route he had dominated for a decade was disrupted. A business partner in a distant city had been quietly siphoning funds. Khalid's creditors began to call in their loans. In his urgency to recover, he overreached. He made claims he could not support. And when one of those assets was investigated, the investigators found something. The documents Khalid had presented at Yusef's trial were forgeries. The forger, pressed by investigators from a separate inquiry entirely, admitted it. He also admitted that gold had changed hands before the original trial. The clerk was brought before a new hearing. He confessed that he had taken the gold. He confessed that he had gone to Amr the night before the trial. And he confessed, his voice dropping, that Amr had listened to him, looked at the gold, and told him to keep it and say nothing, that he would handle the matter himself. The room went quiet. Amr was summoned to explain himself. He came without hesitation. He told them everything. He had known, the night the clerk came to him, that the documents were likely false. He had seen forgeries before. He knew what they looked like. But knowing was not proving. And in a court of law, the difference between those two things is everything. If he had ruled for Yusef on instinct, without evidence, against formal documentation, his verdict would have been overturned on appeal within weeks. Khalid's lawyers would have buried the case. Yusef would have lost again, this time with the appearance of a fair process having been followed. So Amr had ruled in Khalid's favor, a ruling that looked like corruption, that felt like corruption, that everyone believed was corruption. And then he had waited. He had kept Khalid in plain sight, confident and unguarded. And he had set into motion a quiet investigation through channels that could not be bought with the same gold already spent. A judge who rules on what he knows rather than what he can prove, Amr said quietly, is not a judge. He is just another powerful man doing what he thinks is right. I did not want to do what I thought was right. I wanted the truth to speak for itself, so I waited until it could. Khalid was tried on the forgery charges and convicted. Yusef was given back the well, along with 3 years of compensation. And Amr returned to the Hall of Justice the following morning, as he always had. The old bread seller near the hall, when she heard the full story, said only, "I told you." And that was the end of it. Here is what Amr understood, that the people around him did not. Justice that moves too fast is not justice. It is impulse wearing justice's clothing. The hardest thing a person of principle can do is hold still when everything inside them wants to act, when the truth is plain to their eyes, but not yet visible to the world, when the cost of waiting is their own reputation. Most people, faced with the choice between protecting their name and protecting the outcome, choose their name. Amr chose the outcome. He let them call him corrupt. He sat with that and kept working and waited for the truth to find its own footing. True wisdom is not knowing the right answer. It is knowing when to speak it and when to wait.